Hey everyone, today we're looking at a friend of mine's results. Chris is a member of Upgraded Formulas, member of the team, and works on content for us. And today we're looking at another example to give you a feel for what you can experience and what you can get insight to in your own hair results, right? So this is, we'll really just dive right in. It's the first time we've looked at one of your results together, right?
This is my first time doing a hair test, and while I am somewhat familiar with minerals and biohacking generally, I saw this and it's just like so complicated. It went over my head. I'm just really looking forward to picking your brain about what this data means. So let's get into it, man.
Great. All right. So one other thing real quick is that as we're going through these results, take this as a rule of thumb because I won't be teaching you the analysis. That's not what this video is about. The consultations that we offer on the website allow you to get the same sort of expertise through a nutritionist I've trained myself. And they go into just an immense amount of detail with you. And they look at your own results, which change from every 2 months. And by doing that, they're looking at different checklists that we've designed, right?
Yeah.
So that way we make sure that there's no copper toxicity. We make sure that even though the copper level looks fine, it's not overly high, but you could have hidden copper or you could have fill in the blank. There's a number of different things. So please just take this as an interesting educational sort of thing and try not to self-diagnose. We want you to absolutely base your own results off of your own, or your own actions off of your own results. And yeah, as you're saying, it can be a lot to look at. So the most important part of this test is not actually the individual elements. That's probably what you did when you first looked at it.
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom, yeah. And that is the logical thing to do. That is what most people would do. So what we really want to do though is we want to first take a glance at the top part. And I after doing this so many times, it doesn't take long. I sort of take a glance. I get an overall feel for the pattern as a whole. I briefly look at the toxic elements. Those are things like mercury. We see them abbreviated there: Hg, Be, As, Sb, Al, Pb, etc. So that's something I take in. I briefly look at the additional elements section. And then I head over and where we'll spend most of our time today. I was able to look at this before we started rolling today. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at this significant ratio section. And what's really cool about that is, and I know we've talked a little about this and you've heard me talk through videos. So some of it, you've got bits and pieces of it. You've listened to different podcasts that I've done, and edited some of those. So I imagine you have a certain lattice work in your mind with some gaps and some points that you're pretty sure of, that you understand.
I think just the whole concept of a mineral ratio was such a mind shift for me because it's something I never really thought about. I think, again, we're talking about the top of these results. Most people would say, am I high in this? Am I low in this? Am I deficient in this? Do I have too much of that?
Right.
And it never really dawned on me to even think about ratios, whether it's zinc to copper or so. I do think there's something about me that is really drawn to this idea of like finding balance. I saw that your company even recently did a little infographic about water, saying, obviously, if you don't have enough water, everyone knows that's bad, but you could also be overhydrating where you're lowering your mineral balance. I mean, if you're drinking 2 gallons a day and you are like me, like 150 pounds, it's probably like too much, right? So I love this idea of
It's different for everyone. Yeah.
dialing in the right ratio, whether that is salt, magnesium, whatever it is.
Absolutely. So, speaking of salt, this is one of the most important areas for you personally. This is one of those things that you don't want to take as a rule of thumb and just start doing. You want to really have your results when you're talking about something like sodium. Because our heart you can think of as a pump. Some people disagree with that idea, but very basically it's a pump, and it sits in a sodium-potassium solution that causes electricity, and that reaction is quite literally, magnesium's in there as well, but that reaction is quite literally what causes the beating.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at things like your sodium to potassium ratio, your sodium to magnesium ratio, these are quite literally life-giving ratios. And to the extent that we optimize these ratios, and you can see you have a good chart, but we have some work to do for sure.
So I'm going to put up the chart for people to see at home of my data. So when we see Na to K, that is sodium to potassium. And if it's low, like in my case, that means the first number is low in relation to this. I mean,
I'll go
second one.
I'll
right?
go through it. Yeah.
So the sodium is low in relation to the potassium.
Yes. Overall, that's the thing. Now there can be at least a dozen reasons why this is the case and what it's influenced by. But yes, numerator denominator is how to think about that. So you're right about that. That's great.
And then I have two significant ratios where the salt is too low.
Yes. So
or the sodium. I mean,
yes.
Do you say salt or do you say sodium? Is there?
So you would absolutely say sodium because it's contained in a lot of different foods. I said salt because that is how we're going to increase it in this particular case. In the future, maybe when you're watching this, our electrolyte product will be available. Right now it isn't. We're still just doing more R&D on it. So it's not available yet. That will be another way to work on this. But for the time being, we talked before this about your sodium, intake and sort of the products you could use. So pink Himalayan salt, right? Celtic salt. If you're watching right now and you're like, table salt, I hear that's bad. I hear salt is bad. It's not true. Watch some of our other videos, but just know that you need to know your levels, right? You need to know your levels, and you need to take salt from the right source. And iodized salt doesn't matter because it often has aluminum and other things like that. Don't ask me why they decided to make that move. Actually, we could go into that, but we won't.
So what you're saying is if I go to Sonic and I get a chili cheese tater tots and the sodium is like really high.
5 bajillion.
That's probably not the right kind of sodium.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. We want it from sources that are, that just have, it has sodium, but it also has so many other additional elements along with it, right? Yeah. So that's really, really key. So in this particular case, looking at, and again, I had some time to look at this off camera. So the sodium is one of the biggest things you can do for energy, actually, because that is going to shift you into your adrenal output and your thyroid output is going to increase based on this. Part of the reason why is we also see that your thyroid function is low from this as well. It's a domino effect, and this is one thing that's going to actually do quite a bit of work for a number of things. So one of the different ratios that we'll focus on is that for this conversation, and we'll actually, right now let's just talk about dosage. Before we do that, we know each other personally, so I have a good feel because we've talked about diet so much. But just to give people a feel for this, how this normally goes, talk to me about your sodium consumption right now. Like, are you salting your food at all? Just whatever comes to mind.
So I think like most people, I'm always like cautious to oversalt. Mm-hmm. So generally speaking, it's like I have a light breakfast, maybe a little bit of salt in the palm, throw that in water with lemon in the morning, like people talk about. But again, maybe it's like time to do a little more. A lot more. And, you know, I might not have any more salt until like yesterday I had a steak with some veggies, grass-fed, Kerrygold butter, little salt. Again, I didn't like want to over-salt it.
They fed the steak grass. I'm just kidding.
At least for me,
it always seems like a weird thing.
The grass-fed,
yeah. Just how we phrase it as a society. Yeah. I just picture a lot of steaks that are all cut and they're just out there in grass, just like green. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's goofy. Yeah, but
then grass finished. That's a whole different thing.
But,
it's funny. I think for me, I've had a bit of like a salt phobia.
Sure.
Of like, oh, it's going to be bad for you if you have too much. Mm-hmm. So what I'll do is probably...
Which is the case, right? For anyone listening, right? Way too much salt, given your ratios, like whatever your diet, it's still not going to be the same base. It won't even be the same for you 2 months from now if you start on one of our protocols. This is why you do, just to say something really quick to them and then come back, because this is a key point that I think everyone needs to understand is no matter where you are right now, you will achieve some awesome results, really quickly. However, the goal is really anywhere from at least a year to several years to achieve maximum sort of, you want to get to the place of being optimum where you have the most energy because life is the most fun at that, right?
Yeah, so. Just anecdotally, I had a female friend who told me that she can't have any salt in the morning or it'll just like totally throw her off and she'll feel bloated and sluggish. And for me, I'm like, no, that's just part of my morning routine. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting how everyone's different. I love to start the day with fat. I've had friends who said they hate to start the day with fat. So, we're all just a bit different.
Certainly. And then our metabolisms, we have those change over time. It's not your metabolic rate currently right now is a bit low. So eating more protein in general is going to be one of the dietary things we talk about. So we can talk about that now.
At the top here, it says metabolic type slow 3. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? What is the 3?
So ideally, where we are and where we want to go to, I'm going to keep this kind of general, but we want to move in the direction of from slow to fast. However, both slow and fast oxidizers have different issues. So a person with a slow metabolism will take in nutrients and they'll sort of sit and they might even like get deposited or burned because they're burned really slowly. Or they'll get eliminated and not used fully. And that's on the very extreme end of the slow. And then on the very extreme end of the fast, this person is, imagine a stove, like a wood stove that you've seen burning in a movie, and it's burning so hot that as you shovel either wood or coal into it, then it just spontaneously combusts.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, and you're not really getting heat from it. It's both are inefficient in opposite directions.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, got it.
So,
Again, it comes back to balance.
It does.
For us to be optimized.
It does. So we want to get it more toward that mid-range. So what we'll talk about here. So your goal is to move maybe in this test from slow 3 down to slow 2. That would be a great next test result. And I think it's very, very doable. So there's a couple things slowing you down. In talking about your diet already, to save time for this video, we've already talked a bit about diet. Not a full discussion, just some. So I have a feel. Now, usually one of our nutritionists would be going over these results with you and talking about your diet and really asking quite a few questions so that they have an overall picture.
Yeah.
So one of the things is, you talked about fat. So I know that we can talk about detox protocols and removing things like mercury and arsenic and aluminum from the diet, from the body, and making sure the home is clean, things like that. Just detox of the environment in general, right? The other thing is we can talk about increasing the metabolism, because as we increase your metabolism, just speaking for you specifically, your metabolism will allow you to remove these toxins from your body faster.
Yeah.
Right? And that makes sense, right?
It goes back to like the furnace metaphor.
Exactly. Yeah.
These things aren't lingering in your body. You're churning through like whatever it is. Again, in my case, I was looking at arsenic, mercury, aluminum. Mm-hmm. None of these are that high where I'm like super worried, but they're also not zero.
They're not. So. Yeah, it's a non. It's a number that you really do want to think about, like your mercury being a 0.11. If it's anything over a 0.04, it's something we want to get out of the body, because so lead is almost non-existent here in your results, but mercury is 1,000 times more toxic than lead. About 1,000 times.
My suspicion here is, we're talking about diet, is sometimes I eat tuna out of the can, that like dollar tuna, just because it's cheap protein. Mm-hmm. And that would be certainly a suspicion of mine.
Yeah, and probably, we've all been through this phase too, because I know you mentioned that like in college you used to eat quite a bit of it too, for the same reason, like cost. Like so many people did. Yeah, I mean we're all learning.
I was on the gallon of milk a day I did half a gallon of milk a day.
Well, believe it or not, your calcium levels have come down since then, and you actually need your calcium levels are adequate right now. They can come up a bit. However, so we are kind of bouncing around, which is fine. It's great for people to have an insight instead of going, in a structured fashion and saving things for later. But your metabolism, calcium to phosphorus, this is something that we want to look at. In your particular case, eating more grass-fed meats, just like you're doing, that's a great choice because you're going to raise phosphorus. And then, your calcium is natural. Your calcium to potassium is naturally going to come up as your sodium starts to push your potassium down. Got it. So, and that's, given your current results. So the biggest thing right now you can do is sodium. So what I would suggest, knowing your diet, you want to do 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of Himalayan salt per day for the next.
You say 1.5 to 2? Mm-hmm. See, that just sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. It absolutely is a lot. But also know that you're 150 pounds.
Yep.
Your ratio is very, very low, and that we're looking to make changes within 60 to 90 days. Yeah. So, 60 days from now, you'll order another test. 90 days from now, so it's just ready and you can take it anytime between there and 90 days. You want to put it in the mail by about day 75 or so, and then by day 90 you're looking at your results again. You're ready to make more changes. So we'll talk again at that point, and then we'll make whatever changes we need to make. But we're changing this. We're steering the entire ship that is your body and brain, and making these physiological changes. And it's pretty amazing that we can shift it that quickly. You've already started to see some results too.
Yeah, I think obviously just the magnesium supplement might be my favorite, just because I was already taking like normal magnesium from another seller, and this just seems to be more effective for helping me get deeper sleep and just kind of overall well-being, clearing kind of mental fog in the morning.
It's really good.
So I know you've said that's kind of an easy win for a lot of people because most people are deficient in magnesium and iodine and these kind of central. Yeah. There's something I kind of like about the fact that it's slow. I think a lot of people expect the overnight success or, the kind of magic pill that's going to solve all your problems. But the reality is like the human body just doesn't work like that,
Right.
There's something cool about looking at these ratios and saying, you know what, I'm going to invest in a long-term well-being by making very subtle changes. It's, I say tablespoon and a half of salt seems like a lot, but it's also not that hard. And it's not that
teaspoon and a half.
Teaspoon, okay.
Key point.
Teaspoon.
Yeah.
Now that's, but like I said, even that, like I've had this kind of salt phobia of like, oh, it's going to make me dehydrated and whatever.
Right.
It's not that hard and it's not that expensive to eat a little pink sea salt. So
yeah, it's incredibly, it's almost no cost at all. You get several pounds of really high quality sea salt for like $10.
Yep.
So yeah, it's very, your heart needs it, all of it, to produce electrical activity. It's essential. What you're really getting at is this concept that is just very simply that we can't rush our healing. We can't rush our path back toward optimal energy levels. There would be a lot of inefficiencies if you think about that built into that. If you did, there would, just by the nature of it, you would incur a lot of waste. And what this is doing is understanding where the body is, understanding what your lifestyle and habits are.
Yeah.
And then meeting the body where it is with supplements that actually work and testing that tells you which ones you need and how much you need. So the biggest part between success, we already know this works, is just how consistent you're going to be with the dosages we talk about.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So, and then of course, coming back to the supplements that work part, they just need to absorb. So that was the biggest struggle for me for the longest time. And that's, if you haven't seen any of our other videos, frankly, I don't know how at this point, but
get on it
because this guy does great work. But you can find more of a story there. That was a real struggle, and that's the reason why upgraded formulas exist today. But these things work, so you can see the synergies between testing instead of guessing, and then making changes both from a supplement standpoint and a dietary standpoint and a habit standpoint. At least most of the time, at least knowing what you should be doing. And then not doing that for 6 months, changing course in 2 to 3 months again, so that you stay on this trajectory.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't become a slow arc that becomes a circle. We've talked about before.
I'll also just say, I think you and I are similar age. I'm 32, and I feel like this is a really good time in life, at least for me personally, to think about those things and take actions on those things. At least for me personally, when I was younger, I don't know, I didn't care as much about my overall well-being, and I was more likely to think, first of all, I don't know, I just wanted to like build a bunch of muscle, and then, we all think we're kind of like invincible. And for me, having parents in my 60s, it's almost like a little peek into the future. And I'm thinking, okay, well, when I'm in my 60s, I want to have that energy. I want to have the clarity, because it's, you've talked about this in your videos. It's energy is really the main thing that keeps us from achieving what we want to in life, or having goals that we feel like we can't focus on, we can't achieve, so.
if you have enough energy, work becomes play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's so much to this idea. The one thing, so all of that is so true. So I'll be 34 in September, and I feel as if I have more energy. My levels have continued to improve over the last 8 to 10 years of doing this. And then, you just age more gracefully at any age. So one of the things, and one of the key points that I know we haven't talked about, is that the reason why you want to get on this as early as you can in life. This is so key for anyone that's considering doing this program, is it gets harder and harder to detox the body as you age. It's just the physics of life. There's just so much that the body's just so much more efficient as in your 20s versus 30s versus 40s versus 50s. There's a decline every year. So as you're trying to get that mercury, some mercury in there, you want to get that out now. It's easier to get it out now than if you're 50. If you're 50, then it's easier to get it now than you're 60. And so on and so forth. You can do it at any age. You just have to be more patient. It will absolutely take years of consistent effort for a lot of people. And just staying consistent is going to yield results. It really is. Like, no matter what else is changing in your life, like, there's no way to ignore this aspect of health. And that's why I think it's so important to focus on.
Well, let me ask you about another significant ratio here.
Okay.
Because this one jumped out at me.
Okay.
The zinc to copper I'm looking at.
Yes.
So, basically I'm coming in at about double the ratio that maybe is ideal. So I guess I'm way too high in copper. I really have no idea where that comes from.
You're a little low in copper. And this is what happens.
Okay, we'll look back at this here.
People misread these charts.
Oh, no, you're right.
All the time. And I've had so many really, really intelligent people not only misread charts, but completely misread them. In other words, reread them backwards, as Chris just did.
Yeah.
So this is a great example.
You're right. I go back, and the copper is actually a little low.
Yes.
And yet the zinc to copper ratio is off.
And the zinc doesn't look super high by itself either.
So what do I do, man?
In this particular case, based on your individual zinc and copper ratios and how they play together, we want to continue supplementing zinc, but we want to certainly dial up copper.
Got it.
So the easiest way to do this is our product called Peak Thyroid, which I just gave you some. We still have the purple and black label on that, so people can see that. And so there you go. So that's going to be a key product, and that has a balanced ratio of copper to zinc. It also has selenium and iodine, and honestly, it's one of our top products. So you could, if you needed to, take zinc and copper, but this is, over time, it's going to balance that level. So, you could make faster progress by just doing copper, but you want a little bit of zinc on a daily basis anyway.
Yeah.
So, because that's just the case. So, going from that to filling in other gaps, your iron to copper looks good, but as you start to make changes, that will likely drop. Because you can see that, it's almost like a game of chess.
Yeah.
Where you're making a move and there's a certain positive outcome of that, but then you open yourself up to something else.
Yeah.
So overall, you made a net move. You think of it as net positive let's say 2 squares, but it ends up being something like 40% forward in the right direction and not 200%, which is okay.
Yeah.
again, that's just the body's a complex system, and what we lose sight of in modern medicine and modern healthcare, which is really more, we all know at this point, really sick care, that we're through efforts like this starting to shift from that sick care back to something that really is healthcare.
Yeah.
Which is nothing. I mean, there's so many amazing doctors out there. It's nothing against them. It's just the training that they received. I mean, they're trained in medicine, not nutrition, first of all. But when we look at this, you know, we are not what we're doing the opposite of what the conventional medical system does, which is they take one thing, they measure one thing, and they go, your iron's low, or your copper's high. Do this. And you can see how no matter how accurate that sample, that test is, it's not taking enough other factors in and looking at the whole thing.
And it's probably going to be a blood sample, which is a snapshot of that day, a part of that day.
Right.
You know, so...
Right. Part of that day.
Yeah, well, you have my vote for Surgeon General if you want to change the system, man.
Thanks. That really is our mission, you know, to change healthcare. So,
yeah. I think, and the innovations are going to come from companies like yours and you know, entrepreneurs like you who are changing it, just reaching out to people through social media and word of mouth and people who have gotten good results and telling their friends. You know, I think it's up to us to make content like this to kind of get the word out there.
Right. Absolutely. Education is such a big piece of this. So as you're watching this, think of people that you can share this video with after, and at the very least, just do that. And, you know, you kind of start to form this accountability thing with your sister or your mom or whoever it is. And, you know, you can even start to get competitive and like outcompete your brother and, you know, things like, oh, you know, like my scores are looking pretty good here, you know, or it's just fun to gamify anything that's important, I find.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really how we win. Is through that gamification process. So the other thing I wanted to touch on briefly is the toxic ratio section. In this particular case, we'll address the deficiencies here, or the low levels here, by direct supplementation with zinc and selenium. So I also gave you some upgraded selenium.
Yeah.
So we'll have some of that going.
So I'm looking at my low ratios. Is Hg mercury?
So yeah, we've got some of this, some of the upgraded selenium. That'll be something you want to take. Hg is mercury, yes, exactly.
Okay, so I guess that's to say I just need a little more iron and zinc.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, let's see. Yes, in that particular case, you need a little more iron. You need more selenium. Mm-hmm. You need more zinc. Your sulfur levels are good. Your zinc to cadmium is good. Right. So this is another key aspect. And I don't think I've talked about this in a video before, but these minerals are really key for not only helping the body to function, but they're also helping to detox these heavy metals.
Yeah.
So that's why we're showing. So that's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to ask about that. Because again, this is something I never even thought about or even knew existed. People often test for heavy metals, but I've never heard of anybody even testing for a ratio of these healthy essential minerals in contrast to the heavy metals. So you're saying a good balance of these will help in the elimination and the detoxification of that stuff.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'd love to get this mercury out of my body. So thank you, upgraded selenium. Yeah,
certainly. Yeah. And zinc as well, and iron. More iron will come in through your diet as well. We'll pretty soon, we will also have a iron supplement that I've been working on for quite some time. So that is almost ready. But, you know, where your levels are right now, I think iron supplementation really isn't necessary. You're again looking at your ratio of iron to copper. It's really, really good. So I think the previous things we talked about are a great, just a great way to address that. So this is, I think, a great natural stopping point. So today, if you got some value out of this, I think, hitting like, subscribe, hitting share certainly is, frankly, a no-brainer, because Chris's results, I think, are really, really powerful for someone to see, when they you can kind of see yourself in this. Although, as we talked about at the top of the video, don't go try to take analysis with all the 200 things I didn't mention and all the things I'm cross-correlating and connecting, and try to apply this. At the very least, you won't have the sort of optimum results. At the worst, you could hurt yourself. This is another reason why we've talked about multivitamins. And last thing I'll say there as a bonus is multivitamins really aren't for anyone. And that's the reason why they're multivitamins and multiminerals. It's a very scattershot approach, and they won't ever really get you well. So I think this is a great point to really capitalize, or to really note for yourself. One of the other supplements we didn't mention was upgraded memory, and that is something based on your results we should also be working in, and we'll set you up with some of that as well. It's a great new product of ours, and I'm super, super happy with it. That's great.
Thank you so much for the consultation, and just looking through all this with you today. I think it definitely kind of becomes clear that scattershot approach to just throwing a bunch of random minerals at your body is maybe not going to work. And I was talking to my dad about this recently, and he said
it's a great visual, just throwing.
It's like a crop dusting, just like you fly over and you're just like. I was talking with my dad about all this, and he was saying every time I've taken a multivitamin, I feel terrible, so I just don't take them. And clearly there's something in them that is just not working, or there's already some ratio that is out of balance and becomes more out of balance, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, man, I've been learning a lot today, and it's just so cool because it's about my own personal health and the future of my health. So let's keep moving forward with some supplementation and see how it looks on the next test.
Yeah, really excited to see where you go from kind of test to test. And for anyone watching, what's the key here? The key really is consistency. We know this process works. It's worked for thousands of people, and it's really about just staying consistent. So on that note, mash like, hit subscribe, and hit share, and we'll see you in the next video.